Hello, parents. I know I've met many of you before, but just in case you don't know me, my name is Dan Batkin, and I'm the school counseling director here at PC. This year, my role has changed a bit, and I'm the school counselor responsible for the seniors and the juniors. I'm sorry we didn't get the chance to all be together at the retreat this year, but I'm thankful that the retreat team has figured out a way for me to have this opportunity to share this message with you all. This is the fourth time I've given a talk like this to the parents. And when Billy Gargaro first asked me to try and share what the high school experience was really like for students, I was very hesitant to say yes. He then explained to me that I didn't really have the option to say no, so here I am. And there are a couple major reasons why I was so reluctant to do this talk that remain true. First, I loathe putting myself into any position that makes me appear as though I am some sort of an expert on teenagers. I realize I work with teenagers every day, but I'm not sure there is any such thing as an expert on teenagers. The other reason is that I am definitely not an expert on parenting. My wife and I have a daughter who turned 3 this past October, and we are anxiously, desperately awaiting for her to turn into an actual human being. At the moment, I feel obligated to congratulate each and every one of you for successfully making it at least 15 years as a parent with your children. So despite the general lack of qualifications for me to talk to you today, I do realize I'm in a pretty unique situation on the faculty here at PC. I don't have anything to do with grades, and I don't have anything to do with discipline. And what that means is that I often get to experience the unfiltered, unedited, real person behind each student. And at times that is both a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that I get to know these kids on a far deeper level than most people at school do. And I often have the chance to help them through the things they really want help with. And the curse is that I've seen them at or beyond their breaking point. I've heard about their demons, their struggles, and the things they don't like about themselves. I've worried about them, and I've lost sleep over them. I've gained weight because of them. Ultimately, I've been forced to accept that I can't fix everything for everybody. And those are the experiences that have helped provide me with the insight I'd like to share with you today. In preparation for talking to you all, I got together with some of our seniors and asked them 2 questions. The first, what is high school really like? And they were quite forthcoming with their responses. It's hard, it's awful, it's intense, it sucks, it sucks, it sucks. The second question was, what do you wish your parents realized about your high school experience? Again, they were quite forthcoming. Please make sure they realize how much it really sucks. Now I can make this a very short, though very accurate talk by saying that high school sucks, but that wouldn't tell the whole story. The good news is that many aspects of the high school experience are pretty much the same as you remember them. The bad news is that many aspects of the high school experience are the same as you remember them, only worse. For some students, yes, high school straight up sucks. And even for the best of students, the ones who give off the appearances of having everything under control, they are under tremendous amounts of pressure, pulled in a variety of different directions, and subject to judgment and criticism, and that can be actual or perceived judgment and criticism from all sides. The truth is that high school is just as intimidating, just as difficult, just as potentially overwhelming as it was when you or I were growing up. But to make matters worse, there are new and different things to be concerned about. I can't speak for each of your high school experiences, but when I graduated in 1997, I didn't have any friends that were taking medicine to manage depression or anxiety. I definitely didn't know anyone who cut themselves or suffered from an eating disorder. Today, you could walk into any classroom or stand in the hall between classes, and those kids are there. In spite of these new concerns, high school students are the same as they always have been and always will be, because they are still going through a tremendous amount of transition. And I will certainly talk more about these concepts as we go on. First, though, I'd like to ask you all a question, and it's a question that your children have probably asked you at some point, probably sarcastically. So, what's the point of high school? The simple answer is that school is about education. School is where students are supposed to learn all the things that their teachers and their parents think are important and useful. However, school is a very small part of the never-ending educational opportunity known as life, and academics are a very small part of everything students end up learning during their time in high school. So now another question for you. Why are there so many television shows and movies about high school? Simply put, high school is where all the really good drama is. High school is where students decide that all the stuff that their teachers and parents think are important and useful may not be important or useful to them. High school is where students learn to make new friends, lose old friends, and burn bridges in spectacular fashion. High school is where students learn what it means to be shady, sketchy, fake, two-faced, basic, or thirsty, and or have someone be shady, sketchy, fake, two-faced, basic, or thirsty towards them. High school is where students learn to follow their hormones, fall in love, and get their hearts broken, quite possibly more than once. High school is where students learn to embrace or accept or question or challenge everything they've been taught up to this point and everyone who has taught them. High school is where students learn who they want to be and who they don't want to be. And this is also where they perfect the art of changing their minds, frequently and seemingly without reason. High school is where students yearn to be celebrated as an individual and accepted as part of a group at the same time. It is an enigmatic place. High school is where students begin to see their parents the exact same way you saw your parents when you were in high school. And high school is where students think they know more than they really know, and where they don't even know what they don't know yet. High school is a confusing and nonsensical place, and all drama aside, there are so many TV shows and movies about high school because, as the hip-hop star Jay-Z once said, it's hard to beat the entertainment value of people who misunderstand the world. And even though Jay was not talking about high school students specifically, his quote could certainly be applied to the vast majority of them. Because of course high school students don't understand the world. They're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. They are still coming to terms with understanding their own individual worlds. And that's what high school is about as much as academics. High school is where students learn to expand their horizons, find new interests, and envision life beyond living with mom and dad. This will both excite and terrify them. And I'm almost ashamed to say I was years into my career as a school counselor before I understood what that really meant. Not long after the school shooting in Connecticut a couple years ago, I had a conversation with a young woman that will stay with me for the rest of my life. As you might imagine, that was a particularly busy week to be a school counselor and to work in high school. And I had a lot of deep conversations with a lot of students, mostly about safety in our school. This one conversation was different, though. It wasn't about safety, it was about experiences. It was about everything she's done and everything she's planning to do that those kids will never have the opportunity to do. And my heart broke, because I was face to face with a 15-year-old who in that moment truly realized how messed up a place the world can be, and just how messed up people can be to each other. In about 2.5 years or so, your kids are suddenly part of that world. As parents, we try and protect and prepare our children as much as humanly possible for the real world. But there's only so much we can do. And that can weigh on the kids as much as it can weigh on all of us. And that's one more weight on top of the usual issues and themes you see on all those TV shows and movies about high school. Things like insecurity or self-esteem, relationship issues, tensions with parents, fitting in, substance use, sexual activity, etc., etc., etc. These are all things high school students may be worrying about or struggling with, in addition to the regular school stuff like homework or grades that they already have on their plate. So now I have another question for you. What was important to you in high school? If you were anything like me, then the most important things were not grades or schoolwork. Video games and sporting events were much more important. Hanging out with friends and having a date to the dance were much more important. Just driving around and eating fast food and listening to music and watching professional wrestling were all much, much, much more important than anything that was going on in school. Basically, everything that was important to me was useless to my parents, and vice versa. I have no doubt that my mom is amazed at how well I've turned out based on who I was in high school. She used to tell me all the time as I was growing up, "I hope you have a child just like you when you're older." I have come to realize that she did not mean this as a compliment. Unfortunately, all the peripheral stuff that goes on in high school, all the stuff that the kids find really important, is the stuff you and I lose sight of as we get older. We've grown to now dismiss these things as irrelevant or unimportant because for us, They have been replaced by all the relevant and important things that our kids don't have to deal with yet. And this makes perfect sense to everyone, except the students who are experiencing it in the moment. If you take nothing else away from this talk, I would ask that you remember these key words: perspective and validation. These are two words I'm constantly reminding myself of over and over again. Those two words, perspective and validation, help me do my job as a counselor in the best possible way. Because a big part of my job is being appreciative of each student's individual perspective, and then realizing why whatever they're telling me is important to them. Whether or not it's actually important in the big picture is not up to me. I just have to accept it as so in that moment and be willing to validate their belief that it truly is. I want to let you all in on a little secret. There is no real formal training in order to become a school counselor. Now let me reassure you. I definitely do have a master's degree in education with a concentration in school counseling, and I definitely have a license from the Commonwealth of Virginia. They're right there on the wall if you'd like to come by the office, take a look at them. When you were studying to become a school counselor, no one teaches you how to fill out paperwork or write recommendation letters. No one teaches you how to make schedules or prepare transcripts. What they teach you is how to be a mental health counselor in a school setting. What they teach you is how to handle it when you're face to face with a 15-year-old, as I was a couple of years ago, who told me, I don't want to live anymore. I know how I'm going to kill myself, and I've started writing my suicide note. They teach you how to help get that kid to the point where they write you this note that says, thank you so much for everything. I wouldn't be here without you. Please know that I'm not telling you this to blow my own horn or to impress you or even to justify a pay raise. I'm telling you this because if your kids weren't feeling stressed or feeling pressure or feeling overwhelmed, then I wouldn't have a job. A key piece of the training to work with high school students is the ability to be unconditionally positive and entirely non-judgmental. Basically, to be a counselor, you must remember that you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And I definitely understand that it is a lot easier for me to be positive and non-judgmental of these kids in my role as their counselor compared to your role as their parent. But let me go back to my expert panel of seniors that I consulted with. When I asked them to specify what made school so hard, so awful, so intense, so sucky, they agreed on two answers. And it wasn't tests or homework or any of that stuff. Two words I heard over and over again were criticism and pressure. The pressure to have the right friends, to be in the right relationships, take the right classes. And the criticism from parents, from classmates, even from teachers. Yes, I understand in the big picture, your kids have it pretty easy right now. They don't have bills or a mortgage to worry about. They don't have to worry about providing for anyone or making sure there is food on the table. They probably don't even have a job yet. So what do they have to be stressed about? Well, I've been at PC for about 3.5 years now, and I've seen it time and time again. About a month after I started, a young lady came into my office in tears. Not because her boyfriend broke up with her or because other students were picking on her. She was in tears because she couldn't figure out how to handle how overwhelming everything had become. This girl was an upperclassman who had already been at PC for years and had taken a variety of intense classes. She had a 4.4 GPA and ranked in the top 5 of her class. But as I've seen over and over since then, this girl was far from the only one who's felt this way. My most recent interaction along these lines was this morning, and we're taping this around 10:30 on a Wednesday morning, and I've already had at least half a dozen conversations along those lines this week. The good thing about going to a relatively small school like PC is that everyone kind of knows everyone else. The bad thing is that everyone is all up in everyone else's business, which can make it a difficult environment at times. When students make mistakes, there is a fear that everyone is going to know about them. There is a fear of judgment from all angles, teachers, other students, and especially parents. I can't tell you how real these fears are, but it's definitely the perception, and it definitely contributes to all the pressure they feel under. Please understand that there is a pretty good chance that your child feels under some sort of pressure at school. Please understand that there is a pretty good chance that your child feels judged. Please understand that they are worried about not being great at everything. Please understand that they truly do worry about letting you down. Please understand that they disappoint themselves too. You've probably heard all about peer pressure and how it can lead good students to make terrible decisions. But parental pressure is just as real a phenomenon as peer pressure and can lead to similarly destructive decisions. So what can you do? The best thing I can tell you is to be open with your children. Don't just talk to them. Talk and listen to them. Take the time to understand where they are coming from. Take the time to understand what they are going through. Don't just assume everything is all right. Understand that they will make mistakes, but teach them to learn from their mistakes. Realize that high school is the perfect time for them to make these mistakes, because they are truly old enough to learn from making them, but still young enough to have you around to teach them as well. Be sure to speak to them out of concern, not out of disappointment. Just saying "I told you so" is not parenting. Giving them the opportunity to prove they've learned from what you've taught them about prior mistakes is a much more effective approach. Most importantly, remember that you may not be your child's hero, but you are definitely their role model. When I was growing up, I had two people I wanted to follow in the footsteps of. The first was not my father, and the second was not my mother. The first was Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian race car driver and three-time Formula One world driving champion. The second was late-night talk show host David Letterman. Even today, if I had the opportunity to do what they did for even an hour, I would jump at that chance. But I'm also reminded of the Nike commercial from my adolescence, featuring the basketball star Charles Barkley, where he said, "I am not a role model. I am not paid to be a role model. I'm paid to wreak havoc on the basketball court. Parents should be role models. Just because I dunk a basketball doesn't mean I should raise your kids." And I share that quote with you today because for however much I may have admired a race car driver or a talk show host, or been inspired by them or desperately wanted to follow in their footsteps, I learned absolutely positively nothing from them about how to live my life. In fact, it was my mother, a teacher who made significant portions of birthday and Christmas money disappear into some sort of scam called a college fund, who taught me the value of education. It was my father, a civil servant who went to work at 4:30 every morning so that he could pick my sister and me up from school every day, who taught me the value of hard work. It is their marriage, now in its 46th year, that showed me how to behave in a relationship and how to respect a partner. It was the way they treated their parents as they grew old, became sick, and passed away that truly taught me respect for family. It was the way they embrace and celebrate their faith that helps me believe even in difficult times. None of these things were things we sat down and talked about. These were the things they taught me purely by their example. As a parent, you are the most important teacher your child will ever have, and they will learn best from your example and your experiences. So share your high school experiences with them, but be sure to share your failures as well as your successes. Be willing to share all the dirt with them. Humanize yourself. Show them what you have learned from your mistakes. I understand that it has to be incredibly hard discussing certain issues with your children, and I'm already dreading certain discussions with my daughter in the distant future. But at the same time, having those difficult discussions is a much better prospect than dealing with the consequences of not having those discussions. I want to get back to the fact that we are all, in some way, preparing these kids for the real world. Some of those difficult conversation topics will be things that they will face in college or beyond, without necessarily having you there as a safety net. So take control of the issues now while you still can. Believe it or not, your kids are dying to communicate with you. They are dying to communicate with anyone. Look at the popularity of Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat for proof of that. Your kids are their own PR machines, and they will tell the world their problems if given the outlet. It is up to you to make yourself that outlet. Otherwise, they will find out everything about everything somewhere else anyway, like the internet, or some other teenager, or the media, or who knows where else. You cannot be afraid to be proactive. I want to finish with what may be the most important thing, and that is the necessity that you find balance with your children. You are without a doubt the central authority figure in your child's life. But it is up to you to decide what kind of authority figure you want to be. You don't have to be a friend. In fact, you shouldn't be trying to be your friend. That's a terrible idea. But you don't have to be a tyrant either. Normally when I give this talk at the retreat, your kids are with Mr. Belkowski, and he shares with them what it is like to be the parent of a teenager, and everything he thinks they should know about your job as parents. As part of his talk, he has the kids ask questions about why parents do the things they do, and he does his best to answer. I've always thought about incorporating something like that into my message to you all, but the problem was every test question I could come up with about why teenagers do the things they do ended up having one of only two answers. Either I have no earthly idea, or for the same reason we did when we were their age. So instead of taking your questions, I have one last question for you. Technically, it's an opinion question, but as far as I'm concerned, there is definitely one right answer. What is the most powerful thing you can say to your children? Everyone always guesses, "I love you," which in my opinion is wrong. I'll admit it's kind of a trick question. "I love you" is without a doubt the most important thing you can say to your children. But I'd like to share this quote about love from the genius children's television show host Fred Rogers. "Love is not a perfect state of caring. It is an active noun like struggle. To love someone is to strive to accept that person exactly the way he or she is, right here and now." To answer my original question, for me, the most powerful thing you can say to your children is "I am proud of you." Deep down, your kids always know that you love them, although yes, they may take it for granted from time to time. However, they are not always sure that you are proud of them, or that you accept them as they are right here and now. So be willing to connect with your children and discover what is important to them. Embrace them for who they are. Remember, your kids are at the age where they will make mistakes and they will disappoint you. But that is only half the story. The other half is how you react to them in those moments. Please, please, please celebrate what they do well with a greater intensity than you criticize what they don't do well. I guarantee you can find more reasons to be proud of them than disappointed if you are willing to look hard enough. I am stressing these things because in about 2.5 years, your children are going out into the real world. And that's only 2.5 years for you all to not only finish preparing them for their journey, but also to finish building the impression of you that they take with them as they go. Be open with them, and they will be more willing to be open with you. Be honest with them, and they will be more willing to be honest with you. Refrain from judging them, and they will be less likely to judge you. If you accept your children for who they are, and not who you may have wanted them to be, they will certainly be more willing to meet you halfway. It is definitely worth the effort. Thank you again for taking the time to watch this video. Feel free to get in touch with me about anything at any point, and enjoy your children.